The Bucks have definitely unleashed Milwaukee's inner design critic. When detailed renderings were released in March, Milwaukeeans likened the arena to a giant taco, a beer barrel, an East Side eatery, and the sweeping hairstyle of Donald Trump. Others, including Bucks fans and city officials, were more generous with their praise.
I think Milwaukee is going to be very proud of this building for generations to come. It's obviously a building that is designed to invite the public in and to reach out into the neighborhood as well. And that's what we are looking for. We want a building that is really going to reach into the community.
I like the new arena. I like the design with the wave design, and it just captures the essence of Milwaukee.
My overall impression is I'm fundamentally satisfied with what they're doing. I mean, could it be better? I suppose, but better how? What, where, when?
I love it. It's just gorgeous. Something for the city of Milwaukee to look forward to.
It has a presence in the Park East. It benefits from the topography that surrounds it.
It does take you back a bit in that it is a very sleek look, but I think Milwaukee needs a more modern, sleek building.
I really like it. I like the design and how it looks, so yeah.
And I like the glass windows on the side. It looks very nice.
It's important to note that sports arenas, which may accommodate everything from NBA games to ice shows to rock stars, are exceedingly complicated buildings. But it is the architect's job to get all those complex details right on the inside and still produce a great overall building. Most of the design professionals we've talked to, even those who like major aspects of the design, have a lot of questions.
I'm a little fearful that it's going to be dated fairly fast. It's sort of the rage of the moment.
The 6th Street entrance looks like an add-on to the design, and it doesn't relate to the rest of the cohesive form of the building. It just looks like a lot of stuff is being hidden in that side.
I'm a little worried more about what it's doing to the urban area around it. So how it turns its back to that street, and we're closing off a street. So those are my probably larger concerns.
The biggest concerns I have about the arena is actually the space around it. I mean, this is a place for the public.
My primary interest is in the public realm. That when you close off streets, which is always a challenging activity within the middle of a city, you have to make sure that there are sufficient activities there that people will be drawn to the space, so it doesn't just become an urban wasteland.
To me, I'm more concerned about the spaces outside of the building and how will they be designed so that they will not basically keep people away.
I guess I'm more interested in what is the final outcome. What do they think about the community surrounding the stadium? How are they going to be integrated into sort of the larger community concerns?
But what really concerns me is the way that the building meets the street. Look closely at what's actually happening where the building meets the ground level. We're looking in most cases on essentially 3 sides of the building as being at least a 10-foot wall of solid concrete.
One of the arena's most striking features is the brawny material it will be clad in, zinc. The architects on the project are careful to say the designs can still be changed. So far, though, they've made very minor adjustments. Will it be enough? Is there enough time for a robust design discussion given how quickly the Bucks and city officials are moving forward? The stakes could not be higher. The project is expected to be a transformative presence and a catalyst for cultural and economic advancement.
You know, when designs are released for a building that are dramatic or different, you know, backlash and criticism is sort of to be expected. But with that said, you know, in the course of interviewing architects and design professionals in Milwaukee, I gotta be straight with you, nobody yet has said this is a great building. The criticism comes in on specifically around issues of the pedestrian realm. So the building is massive, it's really tight to the site, especially on the northeast corner of 4th Street. The 3 walls around the edges of the building that are not the glassy front are very solid at the pedestrian realm. And then the back side, as Chris Ann mentioned, and a lot of people mentioned, feels really unresolved with the larger building. To what extent can we realistically, are you able to kind of take in this criticism and adjust.
The main difference of this arena is there is internal and external transparency from every angle of this arena. When you walk down Juneau, you are actually walking under the arena, that you can actually look up and see your 7 stories of activity in the arena down Juneau. What are the abilities to refine and change? We are doing them every day on projects. On the major architecture and design, we are not going to make dramatic changes at this point, in that we're literally in the final stages of approval. But the most important thing to realize here, and where we are not complete, is the landscape and urban design of what makes this a neighborhood and how it constructs. So there's a lot of criticism about the streetscapes and the landscapes, and we've retained, if you're up on this, Ranka on the local design side, and Gensler out of Chicago. But we are not even close to finish on what the surrounding area is and what the connective tissue is to attach the building to the other parts of the development.
Let me ask you a little bit about the public process, because the time from getting detailed design renderings to Common Council vote is basically 2 months. That is not really enough time to have a robust public design discussion, and for the architects really to have time to respond to that and actually change the building, which we have seen in other cities around the country. That does happen. Why was that so short, and why was there not incorporated into this time process the opportunity for the public, which is investing very deeply in this, to kind of engage with that process?
But I think it's very important to note that almost a year ago we started to really socialize the design and where this building was going, and kind of start to absorb public commentary. And there were certainly enough forums, and I can tell you our example here is we're here today to listen to and to absorb and refine, like based on opinion. So we have not spent a 2-month period kind of in detailed design, and the city common council, as well as the mayor's office, we have been in this process for 12 intense months in different variations and versions and refinements of getting this done. So is the approval process like a 2-month spur? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But is the process to get to approvals? It's a long, tedious process.
Okay, so Peter, Brad, Greg, does that mean as a result of opinions from these folks tonight, criticisms you've heard, constructive criticisms, hopefully, that you might yet make changes in the design before it goes forward to the Common Council Zoning Committee public hearing in a few weeks?
And I have to say, as a local architect, and I think it's great to have public comment, and I would agree, in fact I said to you earlier, I think the earlier the better in that process, but we are here where we're at today. Okay, we are at the point we are today. What I have learned in working with Populous is that arenas are very different types of buildings, and most of the people that you're talking to on the street, or even the local architects, with all due respect, have never designed an arena. And so there's very specific functional characteristics of an arena that, quite honestly, don't play well with some of the other things that we're talking about. One of the big problems, and this is not something that Populous brought on or wanted to do, but our water table in Milwaukee is 8 feet below the surface. So we have water 8 feet below the surface. It would be a game changer to be able to lower this bowl, such like Barclay, where you can walk in and you go down into the bowl. That would completely be a game changer at the street level. That's what we wanted to do, quite frankly.
Right.
But it can't be done.
But our water table doesn't allow us to do that. So that's just one example.
Can we talk about that for a minute? Because
Sure.
I know that was your original intention, and there are other buildings, including the Journal Sentinel building, that are built below grade.
Sure.
In this district, and we've asked, how expensive would it be? Because you're right, all of
I'll
the
tell you
criticism-
exactly
just
about
one second.
that.
All the criticisms that are being voiced
Sure.
would be
Sure.
largely eliminated if you were able to build below grade like you wanted to.
Correct.
So we've asked how expensive it is. How expensive is it? And Peter, do you think you made the right decision by deciding not to go below grade?
Can I answer the
Yeah,
question?
yeah.
So there's two things. First of all, in order to build below the water table, you have to have weight. You have to have to basically alleviate the buoyancy of the water.
Yeah.
So that's why the taller buildings in Milwaukee can go deeper, because the weight displaces the water. Actually, the arena is not a heavy building. It's a large empty volume. And so it's not heavy. It's not heavy enough. So what happens is you have to de-water. You have to essentially have a perpetual dewatering system. So in terms of the cost, there's not only the cost for doing it, but there's the ongoing cost of perpetually dewatering the space. Very, very costly.
Can you put a number on that for us?
I mean, I don't know. We probably can't.
You must have looked at it, right? Because you really wanted to do this.
It's probably, it's probably at least 30, 40 million to start, without the ongoing dewatering process. So what is that? That's what percentage of the project is that?
So Stephen, as our guest critic, you've heard some of the discussion about the design, and you're really fresh to this discussion. When you look at this building, what's your gut reaction? What's your critique of the building?
Well, the first reaction is that you're very fortunate, I think, to have the building in the city. In New England, Boston, and we had a chance for a football stadium to be built in the city, and of course, because of lots of issues, it was sent off to the suburbs, and I think it was a lost opportunity. So the first impression is that's fantastic. It's really a great opportunity to bring a kind of life to a part of town that could use it. And the idea of bringing 20,000 people to this location 41 times and have the event, I think that's great. That's awesome, and now hopefully I'll get some credit, because I'm actually a huge basketball fan, and I'm really impressed by your young talent. It just seems like you're really in a good place, and now with this building and the young players, you could really, sort of recreate some of the, I think it's the late 60s, right? But anyway, to get back to those days. So no, I think all that's fantastic. My big issue, and I think this is very advanced, so, setting aside my first comments, that space in front is what I wonder about. It's not football. The experience is not tailgating for basketball. Basketball is like a date experience where you go inside and you have 2 hours and you go home. And you don't want it to be just that. You want it to be, you want to know what that is, rather than people just kind of milling about. What happens there? And so I think, to me, that could be a really good point of discussion, because that's still in play, it seems. The building across the way, all of the surrounding, I think you had mentioned that this is all stuff for discussion. That's so critical, I think. Even if I'm not going to go to a game, I can feel like I can still be part of the action. In Boston, we have Fenway Park, and Fenway Park did something really clever where they basically annex some of the adjacent streets during game day. You may not be inside the stadium, but you can hear what's happening, and because there's like a little gateway and you pay a couple of dollars, you can be, there's lots of fan experiences, lots of different vendors. You can feel part of that game without necessarily being inside of it. And so all of those things are possible. I hope that maybe those are things that, there can be some positive pressure and sort of that you want that, and you sort of hope that those kinds of things can happen and really make this the catalyst, which I think that you're trying to make it. It's just not visible there because it's a kind of cropped object. I think some of the questions of the architects were about what happens sort of outside, because I'm sure Populous is a very good firm. It's a very good architecture firm. They can make the fan experience fantastic, I'm sure. I think that the questions are more about what happens as what's around it.
So Stephen, do you think it's a great building?
I hate those kind of questions.
Sorry, gotta ask, right?
I don't feel that way. When part of my sort of tour of Milwaukee, drove down that main avenue and we saw the Calatrava building kind of lifting off at the end of the axis there, and I said, wow, that's something special.
Yeah.
I thought that was. And so I don't have that impression of that yet. I don't think that's really fair yet, but because it's not really done. This is only one part of a larger ensemble. I think there's so much pressure on the landscape person, the architect across the way, what happens to the side, which is sort of undeveloped right now. It's like Barclays. Barclays is part of a master plan. And so that's one piece, and as an object, it's pretty good. And then you start to say, well, let me see, the rest. Does it do what it's supposed to do, which is supposed to be a catalyst? And so I come down here for the game, I have dinner, my kids play out here. I just want this to be you want this to be an active, exciting place, not just during game day. I think you want it to be a place that people go to because, I don't know, in the wintertime, it's an ice skating rink in front or what have you. I don't know what that is yet, so it's hard to evaluate. As an object, sometimes these things are subjective. It's not my favorite kind of thing. I think the imagery of a wave is, it can be cliche, I think. I think the Calatrava imagery, it seemed like a bird or nautical. It felt right.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel quite right yet, but then again, I'm just looking at renderings and you know, it's hard to say, but if you make a mistake or a building that's not so great, I mean, it's like Brooklyn and New York. There's like so much.
Yeah.
This is so important actually, I think, for this city.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think buildings in some of the smaller cities, it's actually more important that this actually get more attention. Not like, oh, it's in New York. We really have to put our A team on the New York job. It's like, no, actually, this is in Milwaukee, and this is way more important because there's so much more riding on it. So.